So now we've looked at the role and functions of the House of Lords, we're going to look at the role and functions of the House of Commons. Okay, so the House of Commons has 6 main functions, and in this video we're going to look at each of them individually. So the first is choosing the government indirectly by virtue of the convention that the person who commands a majority in the Commons is entitled to form a government. What does this mean? Well, this means that it's generally a convention that the party with the largest amount of seats and largest votes gets to form a government. That's generally a convention. In reality, the Queen could ask any member of Parliament to form a government, okay? And she's just generally said that the main the leader of the largest party will get to form a government, which makes sense. But this isn't exactly law, this is just convention. The Commons has no veto over individual appointments, nor can it dismiss individual members of the government. Okay, so that's just make it very clear. They form a government, but they can't exactly veto over the appointments to the government. Once a government is formed, the Prime Minister can choose whoever they want to be part of that government. So if Boris Johnson wants to pick a member of the Labour front benches to be part of their government, then they could. It's just very unlikely that they would do that. Second, they sustain the government by supplying it with funds and authorising taxation. Parliamentary approval of executive's budget and accounts is largely a formality, though. It's generally always accepted that Parliament will approve the budget that the executive brings about, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be. Like, a Parliament could say no to supplying the funds. So, detailed scrutiny and control over government spending takes place mainly within the government itself through the Treasury and not through Parliament. However, Parliament still has this power. It's just convention that they don't really use it. Okay? And so, a substantial parliamentary safeguard is provided by the National Audit Office. So this is the only really main area of the legislature having influence over the budget of the executive. Okay, and that is the National Audit Office. National Audit Office. Okay? 3, the main one is legislation. Any member can propose a bill, but in practice, the parliamentary timetable is dominated by the government business, and legislation is usually presented to Parliament, ready, drafted by the executive. So, to really understand the workings and functions of this House of Commons, you have to really understand the sort of history of the House of Commons. Political parties didn't exist in reality before 1849. They had after 1849, we start to see the grouping of MPs together into parties to sort of make Parliament more productive. So this is why the official functions of the House of Commons are sort of skewed slightly, because these official functions didn't really anticipate the need for huge political parties. The 4th one is supervising the executive by scrutinising its activities. Okay, so by convention, ministers are accountable to Parliament and must appear in Parliament to participate in debates, make statements, answer questions, and appear before committees. So policy announcements should be made to Parliament before releasing them through the media. However, this is not there's no clear convention about this, and this principle is often ignored, unfortunately. And the Commons can require a government to resign by a vote of no confidence, or it can trigger the dissolution of parliaments as per the Fixed Term Parliament Act, which is the 2011 piece of legislation. So there can be votes of no confidence against the government. So the government, if the Parliament votes of no confidence, then they have to decide amongst themselves to form a government to bring back confidence. Otherwise, it will automatically go to a general election. And this is something that has been on the sort of has been in the air for the last year or so, since the government has been relatively incompetent towards Brexit deals and Brexit negotiations. That's not really an opinion, that's just generally the case, since there have been a number of votes of no confidence. It was also ruled recently that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson was unlawful in proroguing Parliament, which could have led to a vote of no confidence in itself. So there's the idea of a no confidence vote is in the air at the moment, but generally this is seen as quite a rarity. Number 5, they redress grievances raised by individual MPs on behalf of their constituents. So there are certain opportunities to raise grievances in debates, but they're usually pursued by correspondence with ministers or by a parliamentary ombudsman. Okay, and by convention, every constituent has the right to access his or her MP. So you will see, if you watch parliamentary proceedings, a number of MPs standing up and talking about specific constituents within their constituency who have got grievances, who have got problems that need to be raised all the way up at Parliament. And finally, they debate matters of public concern. Okay, this is limited though. There are limited procedural opportunities for such debates. If you know, there are e-petitions. So anyone can create an e-petition, and if it gets 100,000 votes, it will be considered to be considered for debate in Parliament. This is generally seen as a matter of just a matter of formality. It doesn't really happen very often. A lot of the time, there aren't debates on the e-petitions, and if they are debates on e-petitions, they're not really taken very seriously. So in general, what we've seen here is a trend of the original functions of the House of Commons sort of being taken over by conventions and the introduction of the political party system. So the functions of the House of Commons are a little bit more skewed because we can't really tell, due to conventions taking functions away or giving functions to other people, and also because of the introduction of political parties. The functions of the House of Commons have changed ever so slightly.